Good afternoon, and thank you very much for joining us today on the program, Healthy Living. I am Adesuwa Osa Owage, your anchor. On the program today, we want to look at stem cell transplantation. What does it do? How does it work? Who can it work for? Who and who can benefit from stem cell transplantation? Why should one go into that? Are there risks involved? Will it benefit you if you do? Why is it so expensive? Why is it that we don't have so many places where stem cell transplantation can be done in Nigeria? These and many more we're going to be looking at on the program, Healthy Living. Some said they have used stem cell transplantation to cure sickle cell, others leukemia, others other cancers. How true this is are some of the questions we expect you to ask on the program Healthy Living, as I will be talking with Professor Nosa Bazwaye of the University of Benin Teaching Hospital. He is a hematologist and a stem cell transplantologist. He is going to be here to talk so much about this issue of stem cell transplantation. Some persons have called it a myth. Others say it can work. Well, I am not the professional. The professional is here, and he will definitely going to enlighten us on all of these things we used to know. But before we meet our guest, I'd like you to know that some of us take so much salt. The other day I was somewhere, somebody was being served food. And then after taking a spoonful of the food, he asked for salt, raw salt. Do you know what salt does to the body? It does so many harms you cannot begin to imagine. When you take too much salt, you're causing problems to yourself. So, salt is not good for you, particularly raw salt. Little intake of salt or no intake of salt will do you a world of good, particularly if you are aging, if you're advancing, if you're 30 plus. You should not do salt that much. Some will say, oh, without salt, the food is not good. All you need is just a little bit of salt. And when you're done cooking, there is no point in adding raw salt to the food you're going to eat. You will only end up with high BP. You will destroy so many organs in your body. You can Google more on this to know what salt will do to you, how salt will harm you. A lot of us have the smartphones, and some don't really know what to do with their smartphones. There's so many things you can Google with your smartphone, and you will get some health tips that will keep you alive for a long time. Let's do a very short break, and when we come back, we will be talking to Professor Nosa Bazwaye. Stay tuned. All right, thank you very much for joining us again on the program Healthy Living on ITV. I'm Adesuwa Owage, and my guest today to talk about stem cell transplantation is Professor Nosa Bazwaye, hematologist and stem cell transplantologist. It's nice to have you join us today on the program.
Thank you very much, Adesuwa.
All right, let's go through this topic over and once again. Stem cell transplantation.
Yes.
Is something that is relatively new to some persons. Others are home with it, and some just don't understand what it means. So tell us, Prof.
Okay, stem cell transplantation. The former name was bone marrow transplantation because the primary source where stem cell was getting from was the bone marrow. So the initial name, so sometimes you hear bone marrow transplantation, sometimes you hear stem cell transplantation. They're all the same.
So it's one and the same.
The same. It's just that the primary source the initial source where we're getting it from was the bone marrow. But now we can get stem cells from so many other places, like the peripheral blood. We can mobilize the stem cells from the bone marrow into the blood. So we collect it from the blood, not from the marrow. We can also get it from cord blood. You know, when they deliver, the placenta is usually thrown away.
Yes.
So the blood within the placenta contains a lot of stem cells. So we can collect stem cells from there for the use of this transplantation.
So there's no point in throwing away
yes. So
the
in developed
anymore.
countries, yes, you can store the cord blood from the newly born child, and you can use these stem cells later to help the child if the child has any problem. You can also use the cord blood to do transplant for the siblings.
Do we have facility to store cord blood
currently, we
in
don't
Nigeria?
have facility in Nigeria for storage, but we collect stem cells most of the time from people who deliver in Nigeria. It is taken outside the country to the United Kingdom for storage. So you can store the stem cells
with the permission of the
parents. Yes. The parents pay for it. So if you are a parent, you want to store the cord blood of your child, you will discuss with the people who have the facilities, and it can be stored for 20 years. After 20 years, they ask you to renew the contract for that storage. So these stem cells, if the child has problem in the future, can be used to do a lot of things.
Instead of looking for donors.
Some of the stem cells can be manipulated to form skin cells. Some of them can be manipulated to form different types of cells, bone cells, and then you can use it to help the child later in the future. So that's why the initial name was bone marrow transplantation. But now the new name is stem cell transplantation. Because even from fat cells, you know, people will go for liposuction.
Okay.
The fat within the tummy, those fats also contain some stem cells.
And
so
those can be stored.
Can also be collected and used for the patient. So you discover that stem cells can now be gotten from so many sources. So that is why the new name is stem cell transplantation, not bone marrow transplantation.
Because I'm sure people used to think that you cut the bone somehow.
Yes, but we really don't cut bone. We just take the stem cells, which is a mother hen, from the bone marrow, and then use it to do the transplant. So that's why the new name is stem cell transplantation. Okay. The same as bone marrow transplantation.
So who does it work for?
Yes, so what it involves is you are trying to take stem cells, a mother hen, from somebody who is normal, and you want to use it to sort out the problem of a patient. So if a patient has things like sickle cell, blood cancer, bone marrow failures, so you can actually now destroy the bone marrow of the patient, kill the mother hen in the marrow that produces those cells of SS, blood cancer. Then you take stem cells from somebody who is well.
Okay, before that, how do you destroy? What do you mean by destroy?
The destruction of the bone marrow cells, the stem cells. You can either use drugs. Okay. Some of these drugs are chemotherapy in a milder form. Then you can also use radiotherapy. You know, take for example, if you take chloramphenicol at high dose for a long time, it will destroy the mother hen in the marrow. Just chloramphenicol. Those days when people talk about typhoid, malaria, they take a lot of chloramphenicol.
I'm sure they don't do that.
Yes, chloramphenicol is no longer to use. So we have drugs that when we give to the patient, it will destroy the mother hen in the bone marrow. Okay. And that will give us enough space to be able to take these new stem cells from the healthy person and then transplant it into the marrow of the patient who has a problem. And these new stem cells will begin to produce cells of the donor. So if the donor was AS, the new cells that will be produced now for the patient will be AS. If the donor is AA, the new cells that will be produced now will be AA. If the donor does not have blood cancer, the new cells that will be produced, that will be circulating, will have no cancer. So that's the principle of taking stem cells from an apparently normal person to cure somebody who has a disease.
So how many diseases can this bone marrow transplantation cure?
Now, the list is endless. There are newer diagnoses. The most common ones are things like, for our environment, for example, sickle cell disease, where we now take somebody who is a donor that is AS and a donor that is AA to cure the disease. The next is blood cancer, because this bone marrow stem cell transplantation was actually designed for blood cancer. It is in 1984 when we had a patient who had blood cancer and was also a sickle cell disease patient. Yes, and then during the transplant to cure the blood cancer, the donor was a hemoglobin AA donor. And then they discovered that with that, the patient now became hemoglobin AA, and also the blood cancer was cured. So the indications are endless. Sickle cell, blood cancer. There's different types of blood cancer. You have the leukemias, you have the multiple myeloma, you have the lymphomas. Then you have bone marrow failures, like people are exposed to irradiation and then, or they take some drugs or some viral infection that damages their bone marrow, they can have, the marrow can fail. And so you can also do transplant for those group of patients. And there are some children that have immune deficiency. They are born with immune deficiency. That means their stem cells cannot produce proper cells to provide immunity. Those are what we call the severe combined immunodeficiency syndrome in children. That we can also take care of. There's also some bone cancer that can affect the bone. So all we need to do is give high-dose chemotherapy, take some stem cells, go and keep it, and bring it back. So the list is endless. Even in cases of breast cancer, what kills most patients when you are giving chemotherapy in cancer is that the drug is so heavy that it destroys both the cancer and the cells in the bone marrow. And then the patient becomes without cells. So what we're saying is that for most diseases, you can actually take the stem cells, keep it somewhere first, and then give a full blast of chemotherapy or radiotherapy to kill both the cancer and the remaining stem cells. And then you bring back the stem cells to transfuse to the patient.
They are the stem cells that you have saved.
That you have saved. That is what we call autologous. That is from cell.
Autologous.
Autologous.
Okay, what if the person does not have? You can get from somebody else. From
that is what we call allo. A donor that is from someone else.
Is there anybody that can donate or a relative?
No. The best donor for transplant is actually a relative. Now, when you talk about relative, now you're talking more of a sibling. Now, when you have a sibling, when we inherit the gene from our parents, you inherit some portion from your father, you inherit some portion from your mother. There's a particular spot at which the gene we take from. So if you have a brother or a sister, you don't need to, identical twins is the best donor because they have the same genetic makeup. But if you are not identical twin and you are the same father and the same mother, you can take the same genetic spot from one part of the gene of your father and then from the mother, and then two of you take from that spot. So if you take genetic materials from that same spot, you are said to have the same genetic identity. We call it the human lymphocyte antigen, HLA. So before we say that a patient has a donor, we have to do that test to say that it's HLA match. So the siblings are the ones that are more likely to be HLA matched. So the more they are HLA matched, the smoother the transplant will be.
Does it matter the age?
Now,
Does age
yes,
matter now?
Age matters in the sense that if somebody who is above 65 years is said to be difficult for that person to be a donor because the stem cells, that's the mother hen. One, it is old. Two, the chance that the patient will have some diseases is also higher at 65. So we try to avoid the very elderly to avoid transferring even another disease to the person that we're trying to kill. So young persons and then the siblings. If the siblings do not match, there are also newer ones that they call the half match. In developed countries, they do not have so many kids. So for that reason, they have perfected the use of a half match, where we take stem cells from the mother or the father.
Half match.
Half match. And then with that, we can also do transplant for the patient. So, but the best is sibling. The next is half match. But we can also get from unrelated donors. The unrelated donors, now you have to search for thousands of people. The good thing in Europe is that most young persons in Europe, volunteers, they know their HLA typing. It's in a bank. It's called a registry. But that is expensive, so government sponsors that. But in Nigeria, we just started a donor bank, and we don't have up to 500 individuals because these things are expensive, so you have people sponsoring them. So we have a donor bank, so we can put your HLA typing into that bank. And then millions of search will be done within the computer to find an unrelated match. There's this story that for every individual, you have maybe what looks like a twin somewhere. So it's definitely, you have somebody who has the same genetic makeup with you somewhere. So when we get that, we call that matched unrelated donor. So that's another method we can use. Then I also mentioned cord blood.
But that one is going to be so difficult.
That's very difficult to search. And in Nigeria, for example,
we really don't have a database.
We don't have a database. And it's also difficult for people to come out voluntarily. Even to donate blood is difficult. It's not talk of you want to come out and donate stem cells. So, but we also use cord blood. Like we're also planning to do transplant now for somebody who has a 2-year-old child who has sickle cell, and then the woman is pregnant. So what we need to do is store the cord blood and use the cord blood to treat the small child. So these are all methods through which we get donors and stem cells. Okay,
some persons have said that stem cell transplantation is a myth. It's not really what it looks like or what people say it is.
Well, you know, I would say, for example, medicine has developed to the extent where you talk about the world, the medical world as a global village. You know, we all are interacting. So it's like in the past, somebody will come out, for example, and say, I have a cure for HIV. And automatically, it is put into the tests. And you discover that it's just lying. So what we do in terms of stem cell transplantation is that there are bodies who are recognized to approve whatever you do in the health sector.
Yes.
Like the World Health Organization, the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Science and Technology. So when we did our first transplant in 2011, the representative of WHO came to University of Benin Teaching Hospital. The minister himself, Minister for Health, came to Benin. And that for Science and Technology also came to see the patient. And our results were tested in international standards. And Nigeria was put in the map of those doing bone marrow transplantation in 2012. And if you see Google now, you discover that Nigeria, Benin City specifically, is in the map of the only country in the entire sub-Saharan Africa that is doing bone marrow transplantation. So it's, and we have had 9 transplants in Benin. Some of them have given us approval to put them on air. You see most of them. Since we've been doing transplants in 2011, we have done 9 transplants. And out of the 9, 8 of them has been very successful. They are now living without sickle cell. Their genotype has changed from SS to AA or SS to AS, depending on the donor.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, we are still on the program Healthy Living. Looking at your screen, you'll see the picture of what we've been talking about here. We're using our own pictures in Nigeria here because things are happening in Benin City. You can actually get this stem cell transplantation here in Edo. The other day, I was watching a sister television where it was said that they are about to bring that technology into Nigeria. I was like, what? Is it that the one we're doing here at our university is not popular enough? Why are people still saying that we're about to bring in that technology of stem cell transplantation into Nigeria when it's been happening in Edo since 2012?
Yeah, well, you know, as a scientist, my duty is actually to do research and transplantation.
and ours is to publicize.
And this is to make sure that people know what we're doing.
Okay.
And also to let you know that we've gone beyond even Edo State. 2 months ago, the ambassador of Congo visited Edo State, visited the government house, and he was received by the governor, the deputy governor, for a collaboration between the government of Congo and a private hospital in Benin that is doing bone marrow transplant. So it's been there, but we're not allowed, for example, to come and begin to put on newspapers, adverts.
Because doctors don't advertise, hospitals don't advertise.
But we have
That's
evidence, as we said, of how, you know, the bad news spreads more. And because it's unethical for us to begin to advertise, what we only do is, for those who have been transplanted, they are already in the country. They are scattered all over the country. Some from Kano, Kaduna, Ilorin, Port Harcourt, you know, some from Benin. So
one can actually live a healthy life after the transplant.
Definitely.
All right, the number is 052-290-573. I know that you want to ask Professor Nosabazuaye questions on bone marrow. Okay, I go again to bone marrow, on stem cell transplantation. All right, so call and ask. It's just so that you don't have to cut bones, because after our session on Thursday on radio, somebody asked the question, is it that you're going to cut into the bones to get this stem or what? I said, okay, join us again on Monday, and Professor Nosabazuaye will be here. I call him doctor, I call him professor. He's one and the same person we're talking about. All right, 052-290-573 is the number. Call in, ask questions. You may have somebody who is suffering from one of this disease or the other, maybe sickle cell, maybe cancer, whatever cancer, blood cancer, you name it. You talked about breast cancer the other time. Can this work for somebody who is suffering from maybe prostate cancer or cervical cancer, any other cancer apart from blood cancer?
No, there are what we call the primary indications for stem cell transplantation. Those diseases that we know that when you usually need to cure the disease. Now, these other cancers you have mentioned, what we call is just that stem cell is more like an adjuvant.
Okay.
Because for them to be able to give most of their drugs most times, they end up destroying both the stem cells and the cancer. So that kind of therapy, for example, for somebody who has prostate cancer or somebody who has cancer of the breast, is actually not that the stem cell is going to take care of the cancer, but it enables the physician or the oncologist who wants to give a high dose to such patient to enable us work with the specialist to save some stem cells.
Okay.
So that when they finish doing their killing, I mean the cancer cells and everything,
we cannot,
of the cells, of the malignant cells, of the cancer cells, we can actually now also bring back the stem cells that we have kept. That's autologous. As I said, those indications like breast cancer, all those other cancers, it's more like an adjuvant. But the one that we're talking about, stem cell transplantation as a cure for it, is the diseases that we know that is the stem cells that is a problem, like a bone marrow failure, blood cancer, sickle cell, you know, and all those other stuff. We discover that that is where we talk about a cure from the stem cell transplantation.
Okay.
Now, as I also mentioned, you were asking, somebody asked the last time when we were on radio, whether we cut bone. We do not. We just, it's like donating blood. But rather than donating the blood from the vessel, if we're using bone marrow, we go into the bone marrow and put a needle into the red part of the bone marrow that is called the marrow, where the mother hen is being produced. And then we collect cells.
It's not as if it's a surgery.
No, it's not a surgery. We collect cells from there. We just keep aspirating. If you see one of the slides, you see us in theater.
Yes.
We are taking blood from inside the marrow. You can see this. We're taking blood from inside the back of the patient through to get to the red part. And from there, we collect blood that contains the mother hen.
That's from the back.
From the back, the bone, the pelvic bone at the back.
Okay.
Yes. So from there, we enter,
not the spinal cord.
No, the pelvic bones at the back. So we collect blood from there, and that blood we collect from there contains the mother hen, and then that is what we use to go and transfuse to the patient like blood. But the mother hen, which is called the stem cells, have the ability to locate the bone marrow of the patient. Okay. So from the blood, we give drugs that will direct the cells to get into the bone marrow. And once they get into the bone marrow, they stay there and begin to produce cells of their own kind.
So what happens when the body rejects such transplantation?
These are some of the complications. No matter what you do in bone marrow transplantation, you still have about 5 to 10% chance that the patient will reject. Even if you have the best match, you have the best technology, for some individual reasons, the patient will reject the transplant. And sometimes they will have to revert back to whatever condition they have. So if they SS, they reverse back. So you have about 5 to 10% chance that you have that. There are other complications. These are some of the complications about transplant. Now, we also know too that even the best center still have about 5 to 10% mortality. You know, not everybody that goes in for appendectomy, for example, that comes out. So we still have that. But technology has improved to the extent where the mortality now is beginning to reduce. Some of these complications will also begin to reduce. There are also what we call graft versus host disease, where the patient is trying to reject the new cells. So there's a fight between the graft and the patient. So you discover at the end of the day there are some skin reactions, but all these are also some complications that usually follow. But if you have a smooth sailing, you have a good graft, the patient lives a very complete life, and the disease would have been cured.
Live a complete life without
drugs.
disease.
Yes, without disease.
Now let me take you back to when the body rejects this transplantation. Does the patient die immediately? How long will the patient live before that patient dies?
No, like we've done 9 transplants for sickle cell, for example, and then only 1 rejected. So that one that rejected is back to SS. So it recalls back to, I mean, it means that the cells, his own cells, have overpowered the new cells we are bringing in, and for some reason kicked out the new cells and it reverts back to his own cells. Okay. So that's usually what happens most of the time when you have a rejection. Reverses back to the diseases condition that the patient had.
Can the person go back for transplantation again?
Yes, sometimes you have newer methods, and then sometimes you may have to change the donor to use another donor. And then most times too, there are many issues why you can have a rejection. If, for example, the person who is donating has given blood to the person before. So these are some of the drawbacks, you know. But once you have a rejection, sometimes you go for a second transplant. Either you change the donor to another donor or use a different method to enable you bypass the ability of the cells of the individual to reject the stem cells.
Now, let's look at the age limit for transplantation. Yeah. From what age to what age can one go for transplantation?
Now, for conditions like sickle cell, in the past, it used to be 16 years and below. You can't do transplant for those who are 16 years and below. But technology has improved now to the extent where there are newer methods that you can do transplant between the ages of 20 and 45. So currently, we've done a 19-year-old sickle cell disease patient, and he's cured of the sickle cell. And by next year, we'll start doing transplant for those who are between 20 and 45 years for sickle cell.
Hello, caller. Good afternoon.
Hello?
Hello, good afternoon. Please reduce the audio level on your television set so that we can hear you properly. Thank you. Please tell us your name and ask your question.
Nosa from Benin.
Nosa from Benin. Okay, professor's namesake. All right, go ahead.
I want to appreciate the professor for the knowledge. But I have some questions to ask.
Please go ahead, sir.
Number one, what does it cost to carry out this transplantation?
Okay.
And what is the duration?
Okay.
The duration of the transplantation.
Okay.
And number three, those ones that are rejected, what would be the additional cost?
Okay.
With transplantation.
Okay.
That's my question. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Nosa. Just switch off and, go back to your radio now. All right, doctor, you heard this question. He has 3 questions. What is the cost of transplantation? What is the duration? And what is the additional cost for those whose body rejected the transplantation?
Now, the cost for bone marrow transplantation remains one of the most expensive therapy in the world. In developed countries like the US and Europe, it's about $200,000, which comes to about 60 to 70 million naira. That's still beyond the reach of many Nigerians. I will always say too that for us in Nigeria, we have tried to domesticate this procedure to ensure that many Nigerians can afford this procedure, though still more expensive than normal therapy. Now, the cost for transplantation in Benin, because you have problems with power, about 2 to 3 million goes to power, to generate power, because the patient stays in the transplant isolation room for 2 to 3 months. And those 2 to 3 months, yes, that's the duration for the transplant. It takes us 2 to 3 months to destroy the bone marrow, to bring in new cells, and for the new cells to start growing to the extent that they will take over the protection of the patient. So that 2 to 3 months, because of problem about power, it takes about 2 to 3 million to power the generator. Because you need light 24/7 in that place.
Without
blinking. So that's a wastage on its own. And then you have, because all the drugs that we use for transplant, they're all imported. None is manufactured in Nigeria. We don't also have a waiver. Like in India, drugs are manufactured in India, and then drugs are also waived. Government decides to be proactive about it. They waive the drugs. They waive VAT and some other import duties for drugs that are imported to those centers. But in Nigeria, we import all our drugs, and they are all in dollars. When we were doing transplant in 2011, 2012, dollar was about 160 or 150. And then the cost for transplant then was 5 million. Now, dollar is 360 naira. So you discover that the drugs also imported is another 2 to 3 million naira for drugs. And then all the kits that we use to manufacture platelets, this blood supportive care, they're also imported. So you discover at the end of the day, if you put all this together, it will take...
anyone.
Yes, none is manufactured in Nigeria, and there's no waiver for any of them. So you discover that at the end of the day, we already wasted about 3 million for power, another 3 or 4 million for drugs imported, and then the supportive care. So the total cost for transplant comes to about 8 million naira. And we are saying that if government is proactive and we have waiver for drugs, we have power constantly, transplant in Nigeria could be done as low as 3 to 4 million naira. And that will be within the reach of many Nigerians. So I've answered the costs, and then the duration is 2 to 3 months, as I mentioned. And after that, the patient is discharged. If you go to a place like India, for example, they keep you for 6 months. But because you're in Nigeria, we can always monitor you, because you cannot be going from Nigeria to India for money. So the cost of flights and all those stuff are also reduced. Then you can see us every month from your place, and then you also discover that that reduces the cost when you compare to place like outside the country. Then finally, you talk about those who have had transplant and they have a failure. Now, for each transplant, all these things are spent, including the power that cannot be reversed back, the drugs that you have used cannot be reversed back. So at the end of the day, if you are doing a secondary transplant, when the first one fails, you are starting all over again. And then most of the time, we will not use the same type of drugs we used in the first regimen. We need to change to something new. And most of the time, the second transplant may even be more expensive than the first transplant because you're going to use a newer method. You're going to try to use a higher dose of some certain drugs. So at the end of the day, the second transplant, most of the time, may be higher than others. Yeah.
All right. No, sir, I hope you're happy. Good afternoon, caller. Hello. Hello, good afternoon. The truth of the matter is this: if you do not reduce the audio level on your television set or move away completely from that room, there is no way we can communicate. Hello, caller. Hello. Hello. All right, 052290 is 0522905573 is the number to call us on. And the number is right there on your screen. Hello, good afternoon.
Hello.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
How are you?
I want to ask a question.
Please tell us your name first before you ask your question.
Me, I'm Mrs. Lilian.
Okay, Lillian, please go ahead.
I want to ask, can somebody with breast cancer have the same transplant?
If somebody with breast cancer can benefit from stem cell transplantation, okay, that means you missed out when Professor was talking about that. All right, Prof.
Yes,
give us an answer.
Yes, as I mentioned in my last few minutes ago, that stem cell transplantation for breast cancer is not a cure for breast cancer. It's more like an adjuvant. I mean, we assist with the breast surgeon if they intend to give a very high dose of their drugs or radiotherapy. We can take the stem cells out from the patient, keep it, and let them do a heavy drug therapy to kill both the cancer and the bone marrow. They destroy everything. And then we can now bring back the stem cells back to the patient to enable the patient to survive. Because most of the time, some of these cancer, patients actually die because, not because now of the cancer, but because of the side effects of the heavy drugs. Because the heavy drugs will damage their bone marrow. So all these are what we call an adjuvant, something that will help the surgeon or the oncologist in managing this patient. But they are not primarily diseases that stem cell transplantation will give a cure to.
Okay. All right. Thank you, doctor. Hello, caller. Good afternoon. Hello? Okay. While we're waiting for more calls, okay. Hello? 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 All right, 052290 is the number. Hello? Hello? All right, Prof, let's look at the risk factors apart from the fact that the body may reject. What are other factors apart from the finance? What are other things that the person may go through? How can the person begin to live again a normal life? Okay. What are the kind of foods that person will eat? What about water? Now, how is the person going to, fit in?
Yeah. Okay. Now, to start with, stem cell transplantation now, even in developed countries, they are done as outpatient. When I mean outpatient, you don't need to keep a patient. Okay,
let's quickly take this call. Hello.
Hello.
Yes. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, madam.
Thank you. What's your name, sir?
This is Humphrey Bekute, calling from Benin.
Okay.
Please, I just want to commend the doctor because I'm excited that we can get something like this in Benin.
Okay.
Not going to the internet to go and make research and come and tell us stories. But these are one of these things, it's one of those things we want to see in our country, in Nigeria.
Okay.
People are breaking in the academic and others. I think this man should be rewarded by the federal government. It's a great son of the kingdom, and it's a great son of Nigeria. He has done a lot, and I will continue to pray for him. And God is going to guide him to break a new ground.
All right.
I just want to praise him for what he has done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you very
Humphrey. All right, let's go
Yes,
about
so as I was saying, you discover that in developed countries, they will do it as outpatients because their environment is clean.
It's clean.
So they can take drugs, go out, come back the next day, take another drug, go to the guest house. But in Nigeria and developing countries, it is difficult. In fact, from the road leading to the transplant center in Benin, some of them, they are very bad. The roads are flooded. So if you have outpatient form of therapy, you're going to have more complications. Because you mentioned about water and food.
Yes.
So when they are there, we control the type of food they eat. Because during transplant, if you eat any food that hasn't, because at that stage, they have no immunity. At a particular time, we destroy the entire bone marrow. And then the patient has no cell to protect.
At all.
So at that time, we regulate the type of food, we regulate the type of drinks. The water must be something, not every water you drink, or else once you have a small infection, then the patient is dead. So these are things we do during the period. So diet is very important, and other things.
You will continue. Hello, caller.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm calling from Benin.
What's your name, please?
Douglas.
Hello?
Good afternoon. My
Good
name is Douglas.
Your name is
Douglas.
Douglas, okay?
Good afternoon, doctor. I want to ask a question, personal question.
Okay.
What is wrong with me? Yes, I said my body will be vibrating. I've met doctor in UBT. They say I should not be thinking, do all these things, so, but the thing continues.
Honestly, I can barely hear you.
Hello, ma'am.
Yes, sir, we can barely hear you. Can you speak up?
I think my body is vibrating.
Your body.
Yes, yes. Yes.
What is wrong with your body?
I think inside my body is vibrating.
Inside your body is vibrating.
Yes.
Okay.
I've met doctor in UPT.
Okay.
Yes. They said I should not be thinking all these things. But the thing continues, it's bothering me. I don't know what is wrong. I said, let me have from doctor.
Okay. We have to go back to your doctor at UBT Douglas. Go back to your doctor with the same complaint that inside your body is still vibrating, despite the fact that you have abstained from all the kind of drinks and stuff they ask you to stop taking. So just go back to your doctor and see what will happen, all right? 052290-573 is the number to call. Hello? Hello? All right, Prof.
Yes,
Let's
so
continue.
the diet I've mentioned is very important and key, because if you don't, you have what we call gut infection, and that will be a big problem to transplant. They've lost patients who go eat anywhere after transplant. So dieting is very important. As simple as it is, could mess up the entire transplant. Now, after that, secondly, we also need to let the patient know that for 1 year, the patient may not go to school. If it's a child, yes, for 1 year. So you have to skip a session, because it will take us 2 to 3 months to do the transplants.
Yes.
It will take another 6 months for the immunity, the new cells, to come over.
Yes.
And then we'll do another immunization, because the new cells are naive. I mean, the new environment it's not their primary environment. So we need to do another immunization. So by the time we finish that, it will be close to 1 year. And after 1 year, we stop drug. You know, when you do kidney transplant, you take drugs for life.
Right.
Because the day you stop the immune suppression, your body rejects the kidney. But for stem cell transplantation, the good thing is that it's only 1 year. So by the end of 1 year, we have finished giving you your drugs, we are giving you immunization, and after that, you are good to go. After 1 year, you are not on any drug. You are like any other person who is hemoglobin AA or hemoglobin AS.
So you can eat
You
anything,
can eat any other thing, yes.
anything.
But within that first 1 year, we will guide your diet. We'll tell you when you need to take vegetables. We'll tell you when you need to take fruits, because these are sources of infection. So that's with respect to diet. We'll also tell our patient, when you start bone marrow transplantation, you lose your hair. The hair is temporary loss, because the drugs we're using will make your hair fall off. So sometimes we ask them to cut their hair before the procedure, so that their hair can look like our own. So once they do that, you discover that we also tell them that once the transplant has been done, after the transplant, the hair will begin to grow back. So if you look at some of them after transplant, they're smiling, their hair is back, and they're looking good. So that's with respect to hair, in terms of hair. Then I also mentioned too that even in the birth centers, you have about 5 to 10% mortality, even no matter what you do. Then they can also reject. You can also have graft. Then we talk about infertility.
Well, what is the exact cause of that mortality?
The mortality can be, as I've mentioned, individuals can have individual reaction, meaning just as individuals reject, individuals can have some reactions like maybe sudden cardiac arrest, but it has to be individual based most of the time, yes. So those are issues, and some of them may have infection. I also mentioned too that if you have a situation where you are doing transplant, infection is a very big problem. So some of them may develop some infection that will not have any remedy.
Okay, let's quickly take this call, Prof. Hello, caller. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Please tell us your name and where you're calling from, and reduce your audio level on the television set you have there. Hello? Hello? All right. Hello? Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Please speak up, tell us your name. Call us only if you have questions to ask or something to contribute to the program, okay? And if you're finding it difficult to reach us, just keep trying. Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Tell us your name, please.
My name is Abba Alke.
Okay, you're welcome.
I'm calling for Benin.
Okay, ask the doctor a question. Okay, we lost that call. So, Prof, after 1 year, the person can fit into society.
Yes, can go back to school.
Go back to school.
Can attend a crowded place, because within that 1 year, before we do immunization, if you expose yourself to where you have a lot of crowd, a lot of people are coughing, the air is polluted, so you stand a chance of having an infection. So until after 1 year, when there's new immunity and your system has enough to protect you, then you can now begin to go to school. So we always tell our patients who are students that skip a year from your school.
What if after 1 year that patient has still not recovered properly? We answer that question. Hello? Hello? Hello?
Speaking from Adua.
Okay, what's your name? You're speaking from Adu. Okay, what's your question? What is your question? Okay.
Yeah, so you've asked after a year.
If after a year.
Yes. You see, when we say a year, it's an average. Some people, by 8 months, by 8, 10 months, they're okay.
Okay.
Some 12 months, some 14 months. But we talk about an average. So if they have what we call a chronic problem that is not resolved, we may extend our therapy to about 14 months. So depending, but on the average, by 1 year, most of the patients would have stopped their immune suppression, they would have finished the vaccination, the immunization, and then they are able now to fit back into the society. And most of them, if they are, like those with this transplant, for those who were not able to go to school before, some of them have gone back to school and even gone to the boarding house, where they can now stay freely without crisis, because most people, their parents don't want to put them in the boarding house because of the crisis. So now, after transplant, some of them have gone back to school and they fit in very well in the hostels because their immunity is back and their cells are okay.
Okay, those that have been cured, those suffering from sickle cell anemia, is it possible for such a patient to marry somebody who is AS or SS?
Okay, now that's one of the questions that is also very important. We also counsel our transplant patients that when we do stem cell transplantation for sickle cell, we are only changing the genetic makeup that has to do with blood cells. So it's the mother hen that has to do with the blood cells that we're changing. So the genotype of that mother hen changes. But the genotype of the sperm and the eggs of the females do not change.
Okay.
Because we're not doing what is called embryonic stem cells. Embryonic stem cell has to do with things like cloning. So, but we're only taking one section of the body that is causing problem. Because it's the red cell that has problem that forms a sickle and causes the patient to have all the problems.
Yes.
So is that one that we're taking care of. So when we finish, we tell the patient, if you do your blood genotype, it will be AS, depending on the donor, or AA. But if you do your spermatozoa genotype, it will still remain SS. If you do the eggs from the female, it will still be SS. So we advise that
the transplantation is just to take off the pains,
yes,
make that
take
person
care of
live
the
normal.
But we still advise them to get married to hemoglobin AA person so that they will not have more sickle cell disease children.
Wow, time is fast spent. I must thank you, Professor Nosabazu Aye, hematologist, stem cell transplantologist, for this time spent with us on the program. And to do a follow-up, people, please call this number. I know that a lot of persons have been trying to reach us and cannot or couldn't reach us today. But to do a follow-up, this is the number you should use, 081-6540-5953. The number again is 081-6540-5953. That is the number with which you can use to do a follow-up. We'll see you again next week, Monday. Until then, please live well and make sure you handle your health seriously. Professor, thank you very much for being my guest today.
Thank you very much, Adesua. Anytime.
All right. Bye-bye.